Quit eating, folks, 30 seconds to showtime. Grab your seat, leave your drinks to the bar. Hold your breath, put your hands together. We present Stanford Bay's finest star, who has danced with the Mayor of New Guinea, who has dined with the Queen of Vermont. We trace the voyages of Sinbad, corresponded with the men who can't do us to tapis. C'est pas la même chose que la vache qui rit. La vache est fort, mon ami.
All right, everybody, welcome to the show. My name is Geoff with the G. Normally, we have a different show happening here, but I run an hour later, but we're starting earlier because we have a great special guest here on the G Spox. That's what I call my show. Right here to the left of me is the wonderful and awesome sideshow legend, Chris Christ. How are you doing, Chris?
Good. Just call me CM because that's more people know me by that than
CM?
my
Okay.
full name. Okay. And no, I'm doing great, and I really thank you for having me on your podcast, and this is going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, I hope so too. It should be a lot of fun. Because I've been doing this show for a while, and I interview all sorts of different people, and then like when you popped on our weekly show. Our weekly chat, because a lot of us sideshow folk have a weekly chat online to make sure we're doing okay, because like myself and like you, we don't go out and see anybody right now because we don't cause any issues. So first off, Hot Todd Lincoln's on the chat saying hello all, been looking forward to this one. Thank you, Todd. And then Andy Major Blaze, CM is what it is, CM. But yeah, thank you guys for being a part of the show. Thank you guys for already in the chat. So what this is a conversation. If you guys have questions, drop them in the chat with me, and I will ask, and we'll go from there, and then I'll do sort of fun stuff. So people are always asking me, so we're going to not do chronological questions or anything like that. We're just going to talk weird stuff. Whatever you feel like talking about, we can. I was asked to ask you about chimpanzees, so I figured you probably had a couple of good chimpanzee stories. I figured that's a good way to start.
Sure. Yeah, I had a couple, and the first one we had, we were going to the Bahamas, and they wanted an elephant. And back in those days, you could buy these things without a lot of permits and stuff. And we're talking about 1970, probably 71. And couldn't get an elephant. And Dick Johnson found a year and a half old chimp. And him and I were partners in the chimp for the Bahama run with the show. And then afterwards, he bought me out, and it was his chimp because he trained it. And then he found me one, and I had him for 5.5 years. And his name was Tobias. And he could do. He's a very, very good animal.
Okay.
Nonetheless, let's clarify: chimps are never pets. You can love them like little children and so on, but you got to remember what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
You're dealing with something that could be very dangerous. Mm-hmm. But one thing that I taught him to do, and this took over the time of a winter, he could write his name.
Oh, wow.
And it was just, all it was, whoop, I went out.
I can still
Hello?
see. I can still see you, sir. CM, I can see you.
I can't see you, but you can see me.
I can see you. Just move your mouse around. You probably pack back up again. You'll probably be okay.
That's all right. Anyway, actually, he just learned to draw Toby by sitting him down in my lap with a chalkboard all winter. They don't have a long attention span for maybe 10 minutes, and he just learned to do it by rote. And it used to drive people crazy. They absolutely thought that he actually could write. But I was young then, and we used to do a hand-to-hand handstand, and then we'd do a single hand. Mm-hmm. Single hand to single hand, and then I'd bring him down. And the other thing, I would throw him up in the air with his head in the palm of my hand, and get him up. He'd throw his arms out, and I'd throw him out. He'd grab my arm and ride it down. But some funny stories about the chimp. And you have to remember, back then, you didn't have to have any permits. You didn't have to have anything. I had a health certificate for him because we took him to a Dr. Schultz, who took care of all the primates for Busch Gardens. And the only reason I had that is I want to make sure he was healthy. Mm-hmm. But we're in Las Vegas, Nevada. And this was after I had sold him to a circus guy. He had two big chimps, and one little one didn't do much. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't working the big ones. And I had gotten busy with other things. I wasn't working him like I used to. I knew he wasn't happy, and this guy took wonderful care of his animals. That's when the value of those things went up. He was probably worth a couple thousand. I think I sold him for like 800 or something. Truth be known, I would have given him to this guy for free because he took such good care. All I wanted him to do is have a good home.
Okay.
And to perform and be happy. And so I didn't know that a year later the guy died of leukemia. He didn't know he was sick yet. The big chimp sensed it. That's why he couldn't work him. Uh-huh. But he didn't know it. And so a couple of years go on, I guess, a year, whatever. And we were with the guys from the State Fair, Texas, and those big U-shaped booths in the old showrooms in Las Vegas. And Dick Van Dyke's brother is doing a dual and banjo thing, and the chimp comes out with the dual and banjo, and I'm looking at Hall, and Hall's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at the chimp. And Ward said, "That's Tobias." I said, "You're damn right it is." So, the chimp ended up in Las Vegas, and I was still on the carnival. I never did see him again because there's I never pronounced this correctly, transcendental aggression, because they're like people. They only remember the good times. So if you went to see him, he's liable to go for the guy that's got him now. And, you can't do that. Once you let him go, you can never see him again. It's I remember going in '73. We went up to do the Armory in Washington, D.C. for the Ringling Show in the basement with the big sideshow with 2 fat people, 4 midgets, 2 giants, like 12 stages. Anyway, I get there and I can't they got something in the Armory, and I got to park in the parking lot. I can't get electricity, and it's getting ready to snow. And I figured, I don't know, what am I going to do? I can't, this thing, poor guy, I'm panicked. So I went and got like 5 copies of the Washington Post. I gave him a double bag of food and a shot of cognac, locked up the door and hoped for the best. And when there was like 4 inches of snow on the ground the next morning when I got there. And I opened the door, and the front of the cage, there was newspaper in front of the cage, and he peeled it back, and there was 1 eyeball. He had stuffed every crack in the cage with paper. He had made a bed with a sheet of newspaper over him. He was warm as toast. Yeah. You give them the stuff, and they're great survivors.
Yeah.
I felt terrible having to do that, but what am I going to do? I got nowhere to take him.
Yeah.
And if I couldn't take him in the living quarters because we never had a heater in there. Mm-hmm. So, back then we didn't carry a generator, a long time ago. Mm-hmm. But he was just fine. And of course, at that point, I was able to go park the truck that morning at 7 o'clock, and he was just fine.
That's
they're very, you know, they're very protective of you. I mean, you know, if you take we used to get them at like 15 pounds. That's like a year and a half old, because when they're young, they're very prone to lung problems or pneumonia. So at that age, they're pretty stable, you know, health-wise, and they're old enough to start training. And you know, if somebody would ever come and try to do something physical to you, that chimp would be like having a shotgun on your hip.
Yeah.
You know, and people don't realize how strong they are, but their fingers lock together when they make a claw, because they're tree climbers. And if they hit you, but that's like hitting you with an iron rake. It's like Bob Knoll used to have the wrestling ape show. And there's no way in the world. Number one, they say, well, to win the money, you got to pin his shoulders. They're not going to let you pin their shoulders because it's against their nature. So now you're going against nature to do that. Number two, their tendon strength is fantastic. And usually they could tell if a guy was going to try to do something, or if he was just a guy in there that they could play with. And somebody was going to try to do something, the first thing they're going to do is a headshot. Mistake. They've got a thick skull that wouldn't even ring their bell. Might break your hand. But if somebody tried to hurt them, they just jump up and grab the bars that were inside the truck in the cage and kick them in the mouth. And what people don't realize is big chimps, they just bite you to get you down, and then they kick your ribs in, because that's how they kill a lion in the jungle.
Okay.
Can you get your video on so I can see you?
Mine is on, sir. I can see you fine.
And I can't see you at all.
I don't know. It's on your end. Is your screen completely black on your end? Is that what's going on?
Yeah.
Just if you got your little mouse or you got your little touchpad, just whop it around. Your screen may come back to life.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
there
that's all it is.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's just it got left alone.
The mouse has been quiet too long.
Yeah, that's all it is. No worries. We've had a lot of people in the chat talking about some stuff that's really good. There's one gentleman who apparently did his college thesis on back in 2002 about the rise and fall in the Circus Sideshow. So they're really thankful that you're part of the show, which I am thankful as well. He's an amazing person.
Well, I'm thankful to be part, and tell him I'm very thankful that for his remarks, and thank you for letting me be part of it.
Oh yeah. Some other people are saying hello and hi. The Atomic Doll, Alex Doll, saying hi, Chris. Yay! Hi, Chris. As is Scabs the Clown is also saying hello.
Hello, Lexi.
Yeah, and then the Amazing Boobzilla also says hello. There's a lot of great people in the chat right now.
Your sound is breaking up bad.
Is it breaking up for you? I apologize, sir. Or CM.
No problem.
Let me make sure my stuff's running good, because I think I might be running heavy. There we go. Let's get a little bit more stuff. All right.
That's better.
Okay.
Much better.
All right. Let's. Somebody asked for a little Poobah story, like a little PD Poobah, like wants to ask you some questions about him. So.
Oh, Poobah stories.
Yeah. What's a fun one with that?
The last day of the show in Dallas, it was always rib day. We would pull ribs on each other. I mean, just to set the stage. One night I'm out there on the last day, and I see the manager of the fair, the assistant manager, the midway manager, and the guys that booked the stuff on the independent midway, all standing out in front watching. And I figure, what are these guys out here for? And I turn around, and Mephisto, Freddie Lulling, tremendous fire eater, guy that was with us for years. Here he has a full chef's outfit, pipe hat, and I get pied. So they were all waiting for me to get pied, you know.
Yeah.
So Pooh-Bah used to do the iron tongue thing, and he had a bucket of rocks. Of course, it's just a layer of rocks. The rest was foam until I filled the whole bucket full of rocks. And when he started to pick it up, he knew something he knew. And he looked over toward me. He knew I did it. And his face just got red, and he picked that thing up, and his veins were sticking out in his head, and he set it down, and he chased me all the way around the tent.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Pooh-Bah stories. You know, he was a true character. And like I told you before, he was family to me. He was like the little brother I never had. I mean, he lived in a mother-in-law's apartment in our place forever until he got to the point where last year he was out with us and his legs would just give way, and for no reason he'd fall down and stuff. And I had long-term health care insurance on him, so, you know, we had him in assisted living because, you know, we couldn't, it wouldn't be right to take him anymore.
Right.
You know, and he was like 83 years old when he died, which is very old for
a little person,
for a chondroplastic dwarf.
Yeah.
And you can ask anybody about him eating fire on the valley. He could eat fire in a hurricane. I've seen people turn every which way down one torch, and it didn't matter how hard the wind was blowing. He'd just go whoop, 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 you know. He was a very good fire eater. Of course, on the valley, all he did was 2 torches because that's all you needed.
Yeah. We got a couple. Reverend Crispy is in the chat, and first off, he wanted to say that you and Ward were so gracious when they were starting out. That it meant a lot to all the young sideshow folk to getting involved. So there's a big thanks from somebody out there.
Well, that's very nice. You know, as you get older, you find great joy in passing on what knowledge you might have to someone who is young and ambitious.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've trained a lot of talkers. We used to do it all ourselves, and I started to train talkers, train some good ones too, and train knife throwers, sword swallowers, you know.
Oh yeah, I know a lot of people who've passed through the tent flaps, as it were, through for World of Wonders, which I do have the website down at the bottom of the screen. Go check them out for all their normal stuff, and then whenever the world gets okay again, enough for touring, you can do so. Probably next year. Also above screens you see like that, you see a donate button to the Southern Sideshow Hootenanny. Donate to that, and then if all things are right again, hopefully that's the first big show with all those sideshow people. So the more, what we can give for that, it makes it a better show and everything like that. So it's really cool.
There's something to say about the Hoot. When Ward was there as a guest one year, it was probably 4 years ago or whatever, and Luella was there. And I saw her, and I told Tommy, I said, you need to go talk to this girl, because I said, she's got all kinds of talent, and you need to go talk to her, because, she'd be good for you. And she was. You've frozen up. You're unfroze now.
Oh, no,
but anyway,
that's
how we got Luella. He was a marvelous performer and a marvelous person.
Oh, yes.
Real sweetheart.
Yeah, at some point, I'll probably bring on one of the shows and we'll talk some fun stuff that way.
Oh, why don't you pull up that picture, the old one that you found?
Oh, yeah, sure thing. So I'm going to pull up a really cool picture if you guys can see. My screen's going to go black for a second with us showing.
Let me set this one before you pull it up. I want people to look at me because this is how that I did look like Elvis Presley after he died. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to share the picture to you first, and then I'm going to show everybody else because it's two different screens. So I'm just making you aware. So then for everybody else, that's the picture.
That was
right
the
there.
Pygmy Village, 1965, and I think it was either one small town in Pennsylvania or Kalamazoo, Michigan. I can't remember. I was just learning how to be a talker.
Yeah.
And I was 17 years old.
Yeah, because that's you. And
now look at that picture and look at me now and see what this business will do to you if you stay in it long enough.
All right, let me clean that out for everybody. There we go. There we go. So yeah, that's at 17, you're in your 70s now. You look great. I mean, that's fact is like you look fine. I mean, I'm about half your age. Actually, I'm a little more than half your age. A bit more half your age, but still, it's one of those. I hope to look as good as I do then, because I have a feeling I probably won't because of rock and roll lifestyles and whatnot. But no, look, that's a great picture because that's you. It also has a young Ward. It looks like, and then was that Pooh-Bah there with the hood underneath?
Pooh-Bah. That's Pooh-Bah.
Okay, so yeah, you guys have been together like forever.
Pooh-Bah joined Ward in 1954.
Oh, okay.
And he was there until the last 2 years when he was in assisted living until he passed away. So he was with us forever, or with Hall before he was with me, or with us.
So yeah, basically you guys, the three of you guys have been basically joined at the hip for who knows, like for since then essentially. So that's
yeah.
So
I mean, we got a burial thing. It's the three of us together.
Oh, okay. Wow. Oh. See what else we got here. We had somebody do a chat or pass through everything really quickly because somebody was asking because the big thing now for a lot of people is a lot of people are really into the sideshow collectibles, like the old school stuff like giant rings and stuff like that.
Right.
What would be the weirdest thing that somebody came up to you about getting for their collection?
Well, I've never had, that many people looking for anything really unusual for their collection, just the normal stuff, the little Bibles, the giant rings, the pitch cards, that kind of thing.
Okay.
I'll tell you what was very unusual one time. We were in Indianapolis, Indiana, and the manager of the carnival came down with a message, said this woman's got this, back when you could have them, of course, this pickled punk, and it was a double-bodied pickle punk, belonged to her great-grandfather, who was a doctor in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And she had the papers for it and everything. And we bought it for $500, and we used it forever.
Okay, wow. That's really cool. We actually are about to have somebody come in to ask a question, if you don't mind, sir. He wants to ask
Go ahead.
Yeah, directly. So who I'm having coming in is going to be Scabs the Clown. Wants to ask you a couple of questions. So here we go. Let me admit him, and we'll be just a moment. There we go.
Hi, everybody.
How you doing? Don't make them too hard now.
Let me turn that off real quick. Sorry about that. I had to go into the background.
Don't make them too difficult. Now I'm an old man, and I won't remember it so good. So don't make them too hard.
And you look great. Not a day over 37.
Yeah, and everybody that sees me in person thinks I'm 82, not 72. So thank you. Very kind of you.
So definitely long-time caller, first-time listener. Thanks, Geoff, for throwing me in for a minute. Really appreciate it. Normally, this is when I do my show, but we figured we didn't want to keep you up all night. Sorry about that. I disappeared. We didn't want to keep you up all night, so you know how old people are.
I
mean, I didn't know, man. You could be partying all night without us knowing, like just strippers and booze and all kinds of fun stuff.
No,
we're not invited to.
Just two old dogs.
2 old dogs. I mean, that sounds like a party to me.
That's it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask, like, when you first got into like performing, when you first joined like
Yeah.
the sideshow and the circus and everything, did you think you'd get to where you are now?
Well, let me kind of set the stage for that. When I was 15,
I'll be right back.
I worked.
Just keep going.
I worked the summer for a local guy with a small carnival, and just a weekend played church festivals and things. And I worked on rides, and then the next year I went on with the Hagen Wallace Circus, which was a shopping center carnival with a circus in the back, an outdoor circus. And I always wanted to be in the sideshow business. I was just a kid. I didn't know how. But I always wanted to be in the sideshow business. But I just didn't know how. And the next winter, they published for the only time in the AB a listing of all the independent back-end operators. So I sat down and wrote everybody. And Hall sent me the most bullshit letter, which all turned out to be BS. God bless him. So I picked going with him. So I worked for him for a couple of years, and then I'll try to make this as quick as I can. Rod Link had bought the Olsen shows, and they wanted a big sideshow, and they were going to fund the show and frame it and so on. And so we're in Chicago at the Ferris Convention, to Sherman Hotel, and the last day at like 5 o'clock, Rod gives Ward some reason why you can't do it right away or something, and Hall is really, really depressed. And I had been looking through the Cavalcade of Ferris magazine, and I saw the Gooding $1 Million Midway, Bill Finance Shows America. And I knew that the Gooding Amusement Company over the years had framed shows for Pete Moore and Emmett Bristilla and so on. So we're going out of the room, and Hall's he's just really down. And because this was a basically done deal going in, and it wasn't that way going out. And so I said, you know Hal Eifert? And he said, yeah. I said, let's go down and see him. And he said, no. And I actually physically forced him into the elevator and shoved him down the hall. And when we knocked on the door, Eifert invited us in, and he was getting ready to go to the banquet the last day of the convention. And he said, well, I haven't done any business in your department. And Ward said, well, I don't have the kind of show that you need, but we can buy this one from Jim Steinmetz for $5,500. And you said you finance shows America. And Ward had been around Eifert before. So the next day, they said, well, we'll have a meeting in the morning, meet Milt Kaufman. Well, none of us knew Kaufman. And Ward said all night long, Ward couldn't sleep. He said, well, Kaufman's going to kill the deal. And I went in there and said, I don't think so. And after about 2 sentences, Milt's just saying yes, yes, and the deal's already sold. He's already sold the deal to Milt. So they gave us they said, come in another month to the Ohio Fair Convention, pick up the check. And the old way of paying for it was 10% of the gross every day. Every day you paid them 10%. And what happened years later, maybe 5 or 6 years later, the guy's name will come to me now. He was the finance guy or the bookkeeper for the finance guy out of Boston. And he told Ward one day, he said, maybe, we ought to get together on you paying for that show, finish paying for that show. Ward said, we paid for it the first year. And he said, that's not what the books are showing. He said, I cut a check every day. It was 10%. It was smart. He paid it every day with a check. So he gave the guy copies of the check. The guy's name is Stan Burton. Gave him copies of the checks. We never heard anymore. Don't know who was doing what to who. But we were clear. But as far as I was a 19-year-old kid put into a position that I hadn't paid my dues properly, I was not qualified for. All I had going for me is a burning desire, a hell of a lot of hard work, and a lot of ambition. And Ward had never really been in that position either. You know, he was the leader. I kept my mouth shut, and I learned. And when I really learned is when we came to Gibsonton, and you know, I got to know Harry Fee and Slim Kelly and the guys that became my mentors. You know, I became a pretty good show framer. When I got here, I couldn't drive a nail straight. So, you know, those guys all took me under their wing. And because something I said before, when you get older, if you find some young person with a lot of ambition and stuff, you want to teach them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I learned being a welder. Guy was building scooter cars in his backyard. When they'd work at night, I'd go over there every night, and the payoff was 2 beers. And that's how I learned not just to be a welder, to be a fabricator, which is cheers, which is a big difference. You know, being able to weld 2 pieces of metal together or to be able to fabricate something are 2 different things. So I learned both things. Did that for almost the whole winter every night. You know, but I had a lot of ambition, and so, you know, I guess I learned on the job, you know. But I mean, I was thrown into something I wouldn't have been able to do, but by myself at that point. And of course, I always said, you know, with Hall and me, Hall liked ballet and I liked boxing. We were so diametrically opposed that together we made one hell of a team.
I was going to say, that sounds great. Like, yeah, they're right there.
We both went further together than we could ever done singularly. He was the guy that liked to get out there and be the front man, and I was the backline guy. I mean, every time we did a movie, a TV show or something, I'd negotiate the deal and all that stuff. That was my thing. You know, keeping the equipment looking sharp, making sure everybody's doing what they were supposed to be doing, let him take the bows, and it was wonderful. Couldn't have been a better combination.
Awesome.
Does that answer your question?
Well, here, I don't want to commandeer the show. I've just got one more thing, and then I'm going to hop off.
Yeah, please.
I'm just kind of proud of it. Wait, what's up?
Go ahead.
Oh, anyway, I just got this Johnny Eck tattoo. And I just wanted
yeah,
to see it.
right. That's really nice.
Yeah, that was one of the things that inspired me when I was young. I watched the movie Freaks. I read about stuff in books. I remember reading about you in books growing up. So thank you for everything you've done, man. I just wanted to ask that question. Y'all have a great night. This is awesome. I'm just going to hop back in the chat and keep watching.
And I want to thank you for getting on, man. Thank you.
Man, thank you. All right. Peace out, guys.
All righty.
Thank you, bud.
All right, so we got a couple of questions on, and then we're going to have a phone call in a minute, but we'll do some questions from people who have on the chat so far to get off.
Who's calling in? Santa Claus?
Yes, Santa Claus is coming in with the weird mutton chop mustache that we all know that Santa Claus to have. Yeah.
I think I know
so I'm not going to, yeah, you should know who that is. So I'm not going to talk about, somebody had a question about something, but I'm going to wait on that one because of that.
Is it James Santa Claus?
It could be. It could be the James Santa Claus. Yeah, I'm just waiting for him to call in now. So somebody asked, because we kind of talked about this off air. So is it true that you are doing a book?
Yeah, I'm doing a book with Kevin Jerome. He's done a couple before, and it's a collaboration. It's taken a while. We should have it out by Christmas. Because I've rewritten it 3 times because I don't want to do a book that just said we were here and there. I wanted to put my emotional feelings and how I felt about things at that time when they were happening. So that there's really some heartfelt genuineness to the book, not just we went here, we went there. And don't ask me the title because I haven't come up with it yet. It's got to be something really heartfelt, but I haven't.
I can't wait for it. It'll be part of my. I can't wait to read it and be part of my collection. I read backwards and forwards like 8,000 times because that's what I usually do with books. I only buy a few a year and then I read them like 3 times. So I can't wait to read it. See what some other fun questions we can have. So Chris, another fun question is: did you meet any of the famous sideshow freaks of the past? You know, as Scab showed off his Johnny Eck tattoo. Do you like meet all those big 30s and 40 stars? I guess of sideshow.
No, because I didn't get into business till '64. So
and most of those guys are already
out. You know, Emmett and Priscilla, Pete Moore, Johan Peterson.
Yeah, those are still good names.
Yeah, Susie the Elephant Skin Girl.
Oh yeah, okay.
We got the tattooed lady. I could go on and on.
Okay, that's still all amazing people. I mean, those are also the classics. Those that 30s and 40s age of yore sort of stuff, and then there was like another foray back in like basically like every 20 years or so there'd be like this big push of like weird sideshow people, and so that's really cool that somebody was asking. So has not called in yet, so that's fine. So somebody asked, wanted to, and I'm trying to figure out how the best way to just ask this to you because I don't want to imply anything or whatever. Like,
Look, don't worry about being politically correct. Just ask the question.
I like being. So somebody wants to ask about you and Ward's relationship on how much it went more like from just professional to be a much more personal relationship, and asking about that. The exact question.
I don't think that has anything to do with this discussion.
That's fair. That's why I wasn't sure to ask about it, which is perfectly fine.
No. I think that we're talking about an era in a business, and I think that's an inappropriate question.
Perfectly fine. That's why I wasn't sure about asking it. So. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's one of those. I go. It's a question that popped up, and I figured I'll ask. It's perfectly fine.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Ask anything.
Awesome. Now I'm trying to get James on here, and he's talking about getting cold feet. One second. What else? Fun stuff. Somebody. Person goes by their name thing. It's just Freak Collector 57. I'm not sure who that is. Is it true that you've been partnering with John Strong?
I know who that is. That is absolutely not true.
Okay, so somebody's trying to.
Couldn't be further from the truth. I know exactly who's doing that. Yeah, and
somebody's throwing a little elbow action. All right.
I feel the elbow in my ribs.
Yeah, okay.
I know who sent that.
That's kind of what I figured. It's what I looked at. So I go, all right, that's cool. Let's see. Broodman78 is the person who said he wrote the thesis about the decline of sideshows. Had said earlier that he had that they had interviewed Hall twice. One time, one closed off, and the other time was much more excited to talk, which is my understanding for him as well. Let's see, some other fun stuff, talking with, any fun stories about gaffes?
Well, I can tell you one about we had a headless solution years ago in the blow-off, and it was set up that you would have to pick, it was in a cabinet, you have to pick it up and set it over the girl's head.
Hi, sir. Cool. I've got Chris on right now. I'm going to put you on speakerphone so you guys can chat back and forth. So 1 second.
So anyway, the headless, you had to put the gaff on. And one night I was tired and I forgot to put the gaff on. The girl's sitting there with her chin in her hands.
Can you hear it? Why don't I turn this up a little bit louder? All right, can you hear? So Chris, I've got James on the phone right now. James Santa Claus, Chris Christ. You guys are online on the air. So back to your story, Chris.
No, well, that was the story.
Oh, okay.
And then later, somebody came and got me because it was the last show of the night, and they said, that girl back there wants to know if you're going to do another show. We've been closed for 45 minutes. Sometimes it's trains, not brains, you know?
Yeah. All right.
Hello, James.
How are you doing this evening?
Hello, James.
Can you hear him okay? Chris?
I don't think he can hear me. But it's just as
I
well.
can hear him.
Oh, he can hear you fine.
I could,
Oh, there we are.
It's a delay.
I could hear you. I could hear you if you didn't use the phone. You're talking from Baltimore.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm the guy who won't shut up.
Very true. It's the guy who won't shut up. I'm going to pull it up a little bit closer to the mic there.
Yeah.
So, James, I know you have some questions for Chris. What do you?
Oh,
yeah.
jeez. I just wanted to, because I missed the first part of this because of the communication back and forth, but I'd just like to hear him talk about his early days in the business with the old timers, prior to him and him getting together with Ward, those guys. I'd really like to hear him talk about, the people he first ran into and some of the ropes that he had to go through with them.
Did you catch that, Chris?
Not completely.
So
Why don't you relay the question?
I will. Did everybody else hear that okay first before the chat gets any farther? So what he's asking is he'd like to hear more about, because we kind of chatted a little bit about the old days when you and Ward first got started, but he'd like to hear more about you guys getting started and dealing with those old timers of that time, and the ropes and fun stuff that you guys had to deal with that.
Yeah, well, it certainly was different when I was a kid. From that picture that you showed, just to show you that, all I wanted to do was be in the business. I lived in the blade box. I was happy just to be there. I didn't get paid much, but it didn't matter because, I just was happy because they let me be there. Mm-hmm. And I was learning something. But the business was much different then because let's say the carnival owners and independents were a huge important part of the business, which they're not anymore. The independents were a huge part of it. So if you look at an old picture, you'll see a lineup of rides down the middle. You'll see shows all the way around. I remember in 1967 in Knoxville, Tennessee, there were 22 shows. The office owned 6 rides, 1 generator wagon, and 2 hot wagons, and that was it. And the review and the jig show.
Okay.
But we had Moody's Freak Animal Show. We had Harry Fee's Monkey Speedway. Big stuff. The big girl review, the big jig show, a big motordrome. So, there was a lot of competition back then, but it was different. And I'm going to get a little away from James's question to show how it changed. As it changed over time, and this probably started, it started before 1983 because we went from taking cash to being on a coupon system. But when we were in Canada with the Conklin shows, one day a week, usually on a Wednesday, they would have a pay one price. The first time I was ever exposed to a pay one price. And they only did it one day during the fairs. They were promoted through the Dominion grocery stores, which is the biggest in Canada then. And it was the biggest day of the fair. And they paid you off righteously. But then everyone started doing more and more pay one prices. And then it became pay one price every day. And then it became pay one price 2 sessions a day. And what happened was it changed over the years. It changed the business dynamics. It changed the demographics of who came in front of you. Now you just got the younger people. You didn't get the cursory family walk around. And that totally changed the back end business. Of course, computers did too, because you can see anything in the world on YouTube. So, but I think the old days go back in the old days, if you were to stop and have a breakdown, 6 other people would stop to see what your problem was, because we were like a big family. Today, you could break down and 50 things would go by and nobody'd stop. Because back in those days, we were, it was not a vocation, it was an avocation, it was a way of life. The people when I was a kid, the carnival owners and stuff, a lot of them didn't have a lot of education. They had good horse trading sense. They were good businessmen, but they were very creative. They were very creative. Today, the guys are different. They're not as creative, I don't think, but they're creative in a different way. They're much more educated. They understand finance. And, of course, marketing is different then than it is now. Now it's electronic. Back then it was billboards and so on. But it's just everything changed. Everything constantly changes with the times.
Well, yeah, the one thing we're guaranteed is everything is change will always happen. So
That's the one constant in life is change.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's really, really interesting as far as the stuff in the past, and like actually with somebody who actually has seen how everything transitions. That's really, really fascinating.
Yes, and it was a slow thing over the many, many years, and but the back end business was on the decline when I got into business. They no longer had midget shows. They no longer had dancing waters. They no longer had Wild West shows. But I was able to make a 50-some-year career out of it before it kind of bottomed out. So
thanks, COVID.
It was a very unlike the games part of it.
Yeah.
When that started to go down, they went off a cliff.
Yeah. What other questions and stuff do you have, James?
Oh, jeez. They could almost be bottomless, as a matter of fact. But I wasn't prepared for this tonight, so I didn't sort of gather them all in. Have you talked about it? How much did you cross paths with Leon Claxton when you and Ward were working?
Leon Claxton.
No. We bought the wardrobe and the sound equipment and stuff. 1960. Well, it would have been the winter of '68 was the last year for Lido, and the Harlem and Havana I think went out the year before, and when Claxton died, and we bought the sound equipment and wardrobe from Gwendolyn, but I never knew him. No.
So you didn't cross paths with him when he was around?
No.
So who were some of the female talkers that you remember working? Any?
Who was
Not a lot. Huh?
Like female talkers?
Okay, well, Callie Miller, girl show talker, she was, now this is not a review talker, this is a bass drum coot show talker. But one of her favorite lines was, and when you go in there, you won't be playing ping pong with the monkeys. A line that I still use, it means nothing, but no, not a lot. I've broken in some female talkers for the sideshow, but Ray Kramer, never saw Helen in action, but Ray Kramer's wife Helen was very good. I really can't tell you. There's been a lot of female inside talkers, but there's a big difference between a good front talker and an inside person. Some people could do both, but very rarely could a good inside guy go outside and be good. An outside guy could go inside and be good. It's just
How come?
just a different nature.
Yeah. So what's the difference? Why is there such a difference between an inside talker and an outside talker?
Well, outside is tougher, because you got to stop them, you got to freeze them, you've got to warm them up and sell them and turn them. Once you got them inside, all you have to do is entertain them. So,
okay.
It's a little different out in front.
That makes sense. Okay. What else have you got, James?
Jeez. Did y'all talk about the wax show that you guys had up at the beach?
The wax show up at the beach.
Yeah, for about 4 years we had one in Seaside Heights, New Jersey. Then we had one in Wildwood for a couple of years. And the one in Seaside, after 4 years, it kind of burned itself out because you get the same clientele even though you change stuff up every year. And we were in a building and there was like a tunnel that went over a little alleyway into the room where we had the wax museum. And they were going to tear the building down because the city wanted to put it in a 4-lane street. And they had a nice piece of property. They offered to build us a building, but I didn't think it was worth it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the Wildwood experience sucked.
Did you guys just not make the money?
You just didn't make the money for Wildwood?
Yeah, we made some money with it, but let me just say that the people that I was dealing with in Seaside Heights were kings and princes, and the guys in Wildwood not so much.
Okay. Makes sense. There was money in one place, not the other. All right. Anything else, James?
Oh, jeez. Do you remember when the Girl to Gorilla shows first came onto the Midway?
Do you remember when the Girl to Gorilla shows first came to the Midway?
I don't know if it was first. I think the first one I saw was in Detroit in 1965. And I remember one distinguished thing. It was the Brazilian people had it, and they made it out of PVC pipe, the banner line, like 8-inch PVC pipe, and it was a windy day, and the whole banner line looked like a rubber band. It went wong, wong, wong. I remember that. The illusion was very good. And the thing is, gorilla shows did good for a while. It takes a lot of people to operate one right if you're doing hours and doing volume. And there's not too many of those around. I mean, Stickley's got one, the one that Dermer had. I think that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
All right, so in the chat, somebody's asking what a gorilla show is. So if you can just give the quick what a gorilla show is to explain somebody better than probably I can, because they're not really.
Yeah. It's basically a vertical blue room illusion, a Galatea, which is a girl visually changing to a gorilla, which is done with a rheostat and changing lights. You see the gorilla image overimposed the girl. Then the gorilla would break out and they had breakaway bars on the thing, and the people would run.
Yeah.
And one time in Dallas, and then back then they used a blank pistol to shoot at the gorilla, and somebody shot somebody in the gorilla show. It had absolutely nothing to do with the gorilla show. I mean, with the people with the show. It was two customers shot each other. And they had crime tape on that thing for 2 days. And had it closed. But we didn't think about things like when I did a sword belt act when I was a kid, I had a 38 on a bayonet, and obviously shooting blanks, but it wasn't a plug gun. It was a regular, fully operable 38. And Red Trower had a rifle with a machine stovepoker that he would swallow and then fire it about 20 feet into what's called a splatter board, knock the light off a candle. Well, it's very light lead, like they use in a shooting gallery, and a very light load. It barely got the thing there. But can you imagine doing that 25 times a day in Dallas today? Shooting a live rifle?
Actually, no, it's Texas, so maybe.
I believe somewhere. I believe it's Remington. Yeah. I had a friend in Dallas that had a video studio. We went down there early one morning, and I had Trower swallow the bayonet and then do the rifle thing, because they were having trouble with a new rifle, some safety problems, and I sent the tape and a letter, saying, this proves that your equipment is safe or whatever. And I got a letter from the vice president of marketing basically telling me that I was the worst and most sick individual he ever heard from.
Did you send a thank you note to him back?
No, I just got a good laugh out of it.
That is amazing. Let's see. We got questions. We're at an hour, just so you're aware, CM. We can keep going if you'd like. We can close up shop. We can do an after thing.
Let's go for a little bit, see who asked something.
All right, no, we have other questions, but also because we have, for people, he's been chatting with, through the phone for a bit now, but that's James Taylor, who is noted sideshow historian. I've known him for several years now. I think he's the only person other than Chris who probably knows more about sideshow than pretty much anybody else. So,
and Kevin too is a very good historian. Let me tell you one thing. I've always said in any sport or any interest that the historians know more than the guys that did it, because the guys that were doing it were too busy trying to make a living and doing their job. And so certainly the historians have put the effort in, and it's wonderful that they keep our heritage alive.
Yeah.
Historians are a wonderful thing.
Oh, I agree. So James, just so you're aware that Alex Dahl is on the chat saying, "Hi, James." So in her way. I bet she is. Somebody, where we got here? Somebody was asking, one person was asking, do you think independent shows still have a chance in today's fairs circuits? That's a pretty heavy question.
When they say independent shows, do they mean, you got to clarify that a little bit. Do they mean on a Carnival Midway?
That'd be if by fairs. I would say using the fairs as a statement would be mean. They're trying to do a carnival midway, like state fairs, the state fair circuit sort of stuff.
I think the right things in the right places framed for today's market. They got to be very small. Can't make percentage deals. You got to get the right flat rate deal. Fairs, independent midway space on fairs is very hard to get. It's possible with the right stuff.
Okay, that's somebody's asking. There we go. What else we got here? We got Matt Griller, who is a person from the Sideshow Hootenanny that James is also familiar with. Asked, what was probably the most popular single act you probably ever saw or ever had, like in any of the carnivals you had? What would you say is your most popular act ever, like?
As far as the public is concerned, Schlitzie, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, Freaks, when Scab's on earlier showing off his Johnny Eck, and it Google Gabble was what was said on it, so yeah, that makes sense. So, like, you would say Schlitzie was probably the most popular that ever graced stages when you ran shows?
Yeah, I think so.
So what was Schlitzie's
I think the best combo I ever had was Barbara Schaefer. She was a little midget woman like Pete Moore. And I had a fat man and I had a giant girl. And all you had to do was say everything on all the pictures. Oh, what I want to tell you about is the triad of the strangest people in the world. The smallest, the biggest, and the tallest. It was a natural. It flowed off your tongue. It was so easy.
Okay. No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, it's easy sales. First off, Phoenix Fire, thank you for doing another month with us for subscribing. That's awesome. Somebody asked us, banner artists. Was there any particular artist that you really enjoyed? Like as far as like, was there a specific one that you guys really loved for the banner art?
Johnny Mia, and he's also my best friend.
Well, there we go.
But his art, one thing about Johnny that some artists didn't know is Johnny knew how to sell tickets. Other artists you could lay something out for them. And I remember one time we did a movie and they said, how long, and they had me have a special banner made for that movie. And I had Johnny paint it. And they said, well, how long does it take you to work, how many renderings and stuff do you have to see? And how long does it take you? I said, it usually takes us about 5 minutes. Because, I just convey my ideas to Johnny and he would interpret them, and he was marvelous guy. And he was with us for like 8 or 9 years. He was our right-hand man. I mean, everybody knew that if we weren't there for some reason, Johnny was in charge.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really good. Somebody was asking a question, which is one of those, it's always a good question. I know James himself is also a big collector of the artwork, and so I'm sure you're very versed with the art as well. So, what else we got here? We got lots of great things. Kali von Wunderkammer, who is the head of the Southern Sideshow Hootenanny, she just wants to make sure, thank you for being part of the show and watching stuff, as do I. Well, I always do. And basically says,
thank you for allowing me. Tell her thank you, young lady, for letting me be on your airwaves.
Well, it's and you're welcome anytime to the Hootenanny whenever we can actually have Hootenannies again, which hopefully March. That's what we're praying for. We were the last show to perform before it closed. We're open.
I've got a lot of stories, so.
Oh, I'm on board. We'll That's like we're happy to have so.
I'd love to do this again. I really enjoyed it. You made my day. I
I
really enjoyed it.
We can talk. We can talk as often as you want to, and whenever you want. My personal door is always open to you, sir, to talk about whatever. And
Well, I
whether it's just
appreciate
you
it.
and me talking about the old days, because I like the weird history stuff. Maybe we can actually rope into getting James into doing stuff live, and like actually being face to face with stuff like that. But we're working on that for next time. So what we got here? So, and also Scabs the Clown, who was just on, said you're welcome to do stuff. So we can do this every week if you want, but that's up to you. I don't want to tire your stuff out. Let's see.
Maybe a couple of weeks and what we'll do is we'll take one subject and do that one subject.
We're gonna talk about that off screen whenever we get done here, because I'm down for like once a month, doing a once a month thing, and we'll just sit and chat about one aspect.
We'll do one, an in-depth story of one section, one type of thing.
I am totally
in
on
my
board with it.
career, I've been through one tornado, one earthquake, one flood, and one hurricane.
Oh, wow. I tell you what, Chris, if you're up for it, I can put the link into our chat group, and we can bring people on that can ask you directly if you'd like.
Yeah, we got a little time left.
I just know that, and that way we can do some live. So we may bring some people on. So I'm gonna throw the link for the chat for Zoom. So you have to have Zoom. We do have somebody who wants us to have a cool, fun wrestling story because I found out about this from Chris Mysterion that used to be a booker for wrestling, and so I'm actually pretty fascinated by that as well. So
You used to do what now?
I would say used to be. I talked to Chris Mysterion, who's a mentalist up in Canada, and he talked about how he used to be a booker in wrestling, and so somebody in the chat was asking about wrestling stories. So
yeah, I did that in the winter time when they had local booking offices. When I had time, if they had some open dates, they'd let me go fill them in, and I always worked on the fringes. And then I spent 3.5 years working for TBS. Well, I was an independent contractor. I did all their pay-per-views, all their satellite uplinks, like 75 dates a year.
oh wow, yeah, I know Chris. I know Mysterion said something about like you and you had a special affinity for Cactus Jack, Mick Foley. So
Mick Foley, I haven't seen him in 30 years, but was a good friend. And he won't take any offense at this.
yeah.
And God bless Owen Hart, who's no longer with us. But we used to tease about who was the tightest. One would take a penny and make Lincoln cry, and the other one take a buffalo and make him go poo poo. And so Mike would often ask me, say. He'd come in late and he'd say, well, you got a room, because Steve, the promotion paid for my room. And he'd say, got 2 beds. Well, I always had 2 beds because I always got a room with 2 beds because I used the other one to lay my stuff out on. Mm-hmm. And he'd be my roommate for the night, so he didn't have to pay for a room. Mm-hmm. A great guy, very, very intelligent, and I'll tell you a quick story about Mike. Is you have to understand his character looked like a bulked up Charles Manson.
Yes.
And we were in Jacksonville doing an afternoon talk show, and there was people from the Art Council, and they were looking at him like he smelled bad or something. And they said something about some artist, and he started to articulately say, oh, yeah, well, did you like this work he did? And how did you what did you think about this? I liked his technique in that better. And it just blew him away because he was a super intelligent guy. Mm-hmm. Very well read, very well educated. One hell of a nice guy.
Oh, I'm sure. So I'm bringing people on screen slowly but surely, and the first person who jumped on was Andy Blaze, who came up here. How are you doing, Andy?
I'm doing great. I'm calling in from Sacramento.
Sacramento, yeah.
So how is everything in beautiful California?
It's hot right now.
Oh, okay.
I performed with Luella at Burning Man. I perform with propane. I wrap myself in walls of flame using a handheld device that shoots about 23 feet in the air. And I also use fire whips. And Killbuck is the person that started Sideshow. And I've been with Killbuck twice performing. And now I'm getting close to retirement, and I'm building a oddities museum that's going to be private. And my goal is to invite people that do good things in the world, and donations can happen, but it's not going to be a business. So what you can see in the background is part of what I'm building. Those are 1860s oddities performers, except for the couple on the far right.
Right.
I don't want to take up much of your time. I've got characters I'm creating. I've got characters I'm creating, storyline, and my theme is going to be it's 110% real.
Yeah.
So I used to do effects and makeup, and I'm going to make a couple of corpses that are going to be interesting here. I'm just delighted to hear from people that have been directly involved in presentations and sideshows and telling stories.
Well, I thank you very much for coming on.
Well, I'm thrilled to hear your stories. And this sort of stuff has motivated me. I have a Killbuck banner. I commissioned him. Another time I could show it, because this is your show.
Andy, we'll chat later. We can bring you, because it sounds fascinating. We'll bring you on sometime. I'll bring you on for a different week, and we'll talk about your stuff too, because that sounds fascinating. So.
Cool.
Let's see. Next on that we have brought on the screen.
Well, because Johnny Mia doesn't paint banners anymore, Killbuck is doing all Tommy stuff.
Yeah. Who else we got brought on was Hot Todd Lincoln. He just jumped on as well. Did you have a question you wanted to ask CM?
I do. I was curious.
Hello, how you doing, buddy?
Good.
How are you
doing, sir? Good. I'm doing great.
Good.
Great. I have through Luella, I actually got involved in the strength side of things, the old time strength acts. Saw her down at the Hoot, and then she referred me to her coach, and so I've been following that path. And I was just wondering if you ever got a chance to work with like folks like the Mighty Atom or any of that, or Slim the Hammerman, any of those cats in the.
Oh, Greenberg, the Mighty Atom.
Yeah.
I saw him 2 years. He must have been 80 years old. Way back in the late
90, 50s. Because he always added 10 years to his age to be even more impressive.
Well, whatever. But he was pitching medicine.
Right.
Off the back of an old truck with these old yellow things. They were out of Pennsylvania, him and his brother.
Yep.
And I got to meet him. And we had a wrestler that used to work the Southern tour with us. His name was Hercules. He'll come to me in a minute. But he would do a couple sideshow stunts in his wrestling gear, with a singlet.
Right.
And drive, do a blockhead routine, and take the nail and stick it in his mouth and bend it. Real family entertainment.
Right, sure. Yeah, I met Greenstein's grandson. There was a documentary that was released about Mighty Atom, and he unveiled it in Baltimore, or did a viewing in Baltimore. So I met him, and then worked with Chris Ryder, who learned from Slim, who worked with Mighty Atom. So there's definitely a strength pedigree, which is pretty fascinating. So anyway,
it is.
I've certainly enjoyed listening to this conversation. So nothing but love for you from Baltimore. So appreciate
Thank you.
Being on.
You need to take better care of those horseshoes.
I know, right? I've got horses walking around in circles being pissed off. It's a real problem.
I know it. We're going to walk, it's going to be like the old joke, walk this way, if you put that on.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I don't want to take up much of your time.
On.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We're gonna do several other ones, maybe one every 2 weeks or whatever. We're gonna do a tight subject.
That's
That sounds
yeah.
great.
We'll talk about that off air, about that sort of stuff. Because what's really cool is, like, even if we get done here on air, we're gonna go off. We'll probably still chat for a few minutes, but we're gonna make that work. Somebody asked us really quick. Well, one is we got Phoenix Fire from Canada, Christopher Campbell. Did you have a question you want to give Phoenix?
Yeah, actually, it's first I want to say it's an honor to listen to your stories, and I appreciate you coming on the show tonight. It's been amazing.
Well, I appreciate you coming up with a question.
My question is, do you keep up with the modern performers, and does anybody stick out in your mind as somebody that's, you mentioned Luella earlier, but anybody else that sticks out in your mind?
I do online, especially now with this COVID thing. There's been nobody working, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And, I haven't seen too much. I've seen a couple of Hells of Poppin' and a couple of shows, but I haven't seen a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Just that they don't come where I get to see them,
Yeah.
And being an old man, rock and roll, dive bar nightclubs is not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. Diana Phillips is on the chat and wants to says talk about Ward at Carnegie Hall.
Hey, Diana, mind your own business.
That's fine. And then the story of Poobah being the leopard man instead of the leprechaun.
Yes, well, you want me to do the Carnegie Hall thing?
Let's do that one. Let's start with that one.
The Carnegie Hall thing started with I have to think of the guy's name now, in Milwaukee that put together the donations and the sponsorships for the parade. He had a delicatessen in downtown Milwaukee, and his son ran Carnegie Hall. And Ward always went for the circus parade because he was a circus man at heart. And Spike Barkin was his name. And Spike said, one day I'm going to do something with you in Carnegie Hall. So he put together this went by 2-3 years, nothing happened. And one day Spike called and said, I want to do this thing with Circus Blues. And it was all people who had worked in the circus and the sideshow, where they would have a what they would call back then a minstrel show. And these were all old Circus Blues performers. And the one guy, he was blind Willie. I'll never forget this. They checked us in the hotel, and he grabs me by the arm and said, I want to go out and, can we go out and have a cigarette? I smoked back then. I said, okay. We went out, and he looked up and down the street, and he can't see anything. And he said, where's the drugs and where's the girls? Not to say that he was good, not to say Blind Willie was good, but he'd make Ray Charles want to get a day job. That's how good it was. And Ward emceed the thing, did a couple numbers in it. He never told anybody about that. I still got it on the wall because he said that's too fantastic to tell anybody. They think I'm full of shit anyway, and they wouldn't believe it.
That's amazing. And then Poobah about being the leopard man instead of the leprechaun.
Yeah, I don't remember the details of that.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
No worries. I'm not going to fault you
I
for it.
remember the story, but not the exact detail.
Okay. No worries. Let's see. So you worked with a lot of famous sideshow folk. In performances you've seen, who would, not including anybody who may be in the chat, Who would you say would be your favorite act you ever saw?
Well, I think, let's say, who was my favorite act personally, because I think it's because we were very close personal friends, would have been Emmett Blackwelder, the armless legless guy.
That's no, it's not. It's still. It's like it's. Yeah, as I said, it's the idea. It's basically the one that you go. You know what? Like if somebody asks you, like, you're like, what show should I watch?
He was always my shotgun in the truck with me in the semi, and him and I were buddies, and he was a close friend.
Okay, no, I'm on board with that. That's good to know. So that's all the questions we had coming through. I think what we'll do is our plan is keep track with myself. Make sure you like on the channel for Cabin Fever live stream and stuff like that. In addition, if you are an Amazon Prime member, you can sign up for free to be a fan of the channel, because there's a lot of cool stuff here on the channel. I do other shows here as well. On Wednesdays, I do a show called The Devil's Hour, where I showcase lots of different acts, including sideshow music and stuff like that. And then I have, like, every Saturday we do Sideshow Saturdays with myself, the amazing Boobzilla, and Scabs a Clown will come on and talk with various people as well. So, and at least every couple of weeks, I'm going to be talking with CM here, Chris Christ, about some specific aspect of the sideshow business, because it's a lot of fun and I love history. And then at some point, I'm going to have James Taylor on. We just got to figure out how he can make that work on his phone.
Yeah, we'll carve that one out by some means.
We have personal we have mutual friends. We can make that work. So.
Sure. Hey, I talk for a living, so.
Oh, I know. That's basically what I do too. So thank you guys so much for tuning into the show. We really totally appreciate it. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, James, for being a part of the show.
Thank you for having me here.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, everybody who came to be a part of the show to ask their questions, including Scabs the Clown, Andy Blaze, Hot Todd Lincoln, and Phoenix Fire. Thank you guys for jumping on for real quick to ask your questions. It's really, really well appreciated. Part of the reason why I started doing this show was to make sure people remember names, because that's how it works. With the pandemic going on, people have short attention spans, so they're not going to remember a lot of this sort of stuff. So me doing this show, that's basically what I do, is I make sure these names are remembered. These stories get remembered, because that's what matters. When things go right again, quote unquote, people are only going to remember the stuff that's still in their ears. And so that's why I like doing the show, is to make sure people still remember this stuff. So once again, thank you very much for being part of the show. People who are in the chat, remember seeing the link on there. If you want to hang out after the show, that's cool, and do stuff. I'm going to keep James on the phone because I can. He can hang up, whatever. But thank you guys for being a part of the show. Thank you, Chris, once again. We will chat again online in a couple of weeks. I'll let everybody know when that happens, and we'll see you guys soon.